Let's kick it. Chillin' with Louie, fix it. Talking about that RC life. Come and kick it. Welcome to Louie, fix it.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to Kick It with Louie's Fix It, and today we going on with part 2 of the Team Corrali Punisher 4 light kit installment. Now, I already did the light kit. As you can see, she's looking beautiful with the headlights, the backlights, the underglow. Oh my God, let me take the power from it because I'm still just running with temporary power. And what I'm here today to do is to get this light kit from this to where you will have, let's say, one wire coming down from the bottom, one wire coming from the top. And then what I'm gonna do to add on to everything, I'm gonna throw a light switch inside there so you can have control of your lights to turn them on and off whenever you desire. So to get this started, first thing first, I will have to release all the wires, all that hard work I did in the last video to get these wires all connected up. Let's release everything. Okay, so now I took all my connectors off. I got all my wires loose. This is your tail lights. This is your top rack light. This is your headlights. And this is your underglow. So to get everything together, what I will be doing is I will be cutting a bunch of my wires. Let me get my soldering machine heated up. I will be cutting my wires down, soldering them all up into one wire. So to do that, I just want to see which wires I want to cut, which wires I want to solder into each other. That will make it look a little bit more decent for me. So what I will be doing is, first thing I'm gonna start off with, since I got majority of my wires is on the front, I will be starting on the front and I'm gonna pull all my wires out. My two underglow and my two headlights. Now my headlights came as one wire, but I'm gonna take it and I'm gonna cut it where it is two wires. So what I'm trying to do here is get all of them the same length. So I'm just gathering all the wires up together and I want to pull them up and I want to have them all coming up the same length in the same area. So all of them will be in the same cut, the same length. And once I have that, take my wire cutters and snip, snip, snip. Now once I got all of them snipped down, now I'm gonna take my wire shredder and I'm gonna give just enough wires where I could twist all of my wires in together. First thing you wanna do is get all your wires twisted together, get them in, and everything I will be using, I'm gonna recycle. I will not be taking new wiring. I will not need any new wiring to do this with. Everything gonna be recycled. And I will show you what I mean in a second. So what I'm doing now is just snipping all my wires, exposing the wires from the plastic covering on all of the wires. And I will do maybe about give or take a ½ inch of each wire I want to expose. The more wire that you have to twist together, the more wire you want exposed. So if I only had two wires to twist together, I would probably do like a ½ inch of exposed wire. But since I'm doing 4 wires here, I want it to be a little bit longer so that when I'm twisting them together, I won't have one wire trying to keep falling out and I gotta deal with that. So I'd rather get it long enough so that I can have all my wires in together, nice and snugged. Now all of my wires, all 4 of my wires, my 2 headlights and my 2 underglow is twisted together. Everything is good. Now what I'm gonna do is take my shrink tube and I'm gonna find a shrink tube big enough to go over this for all those wires together, because that's what I'm looking for, a shrink tube to cover these wires, not the small wires, the bigger wires together. All right, so now that you got all of your wires together, you got it in your shrink tube. I always advise to put the shrink tube on once you tie all the wires and once on one side up, so that when you solder your next wire into this, sometimes I tend to forget to put these tubes on it, and I just put the final cover tube to bond all this into one, and I'll put that one on and I forget to put these two on, and these two you have to put on because this separates your positive and your negative. So once I have that like I want it, so what I said when I said I was recycling, this is what I mean recycling. So what I'm gonna do is take the wire that I originally was using to run all my wires down. I'm gonna use that wire to run these wires down to the middle. So all you do is get this wire prepped, ready to run, and you just clip in. Now this wire, the exposed wire on it, you want it to be longer than the exposed wire on that, because now this wire got to go around all of these. So you want to put that there, and you want to get a shrink tube that can handle, that can cover all of those wires at once. I think that one's a little bit too big. And you want your shrink tube to be big, but not way too big where when you shrink it, it still have space inside there where it's moving. You don't want that. You want it to be just big enough to fit everything, and it's not gonna be all wrinkly, and you know, when it shrink down, it's gonna fit properly on it. It's not gonna be way too big. Or if it's way too small and you can't get it on, then you have a problem there. So what you do is you put your big tube on your second wire, and you take your wires and you twist them in together. Now when you twist them on, they tight, but they not crazy tight, because you're still gonna solder these wires in together. You're not just gonna leave them like this and put the tubing on them. Now, if you don't have a soldering machine, you can leave them like this and put the tubing on them and heat them up, and it will hold it. But if it's a strong enough tug on it, one of your wires can break loose and you will lose connection, and you won't have power to one of your lights, or maybe all the lights. So this is why I solder mine together. And when you soldering it, first thing first, make sure your soldering machine is clean. All right, so when you soldering your wires together, what you want to do, take your soldering machine and put it on one side of the wire. So your wire is here, you're gonna put your soldering machine on the other side. You can sit it there for about 3 seconds, let it heat up, and what you wanna do is take your solder and put it to the machine. Once the solder starts to melt, you're just gonna rub the solder machine up and down, ensuring that your solder is around the full wire. So as you rubbing the solder machine up, you pushing your solder to it, and it's gonna give a coat around your wire. And the reason why I say to put it like this, you don't have to put as much solder on wires when you soldering wires, but these is wires that's inside of your RC body that's gonna be jumping around, it's gonna be bending, it's gonna be flexing when you running your car. So you do want a quite bit of solder on your wires so that they don't break loose, or one of the wires that's inside there don't have enough solder and it wind up coming out of there. You don't want to go back inside of your lights to fix all this, because the way I'm telling you to fix this now, to get back inside of your lights will be a hassle. You want it to be a final solder. Everything is done. When everything is done, you walk away. You don't ever have to come back and deal with your lights after this process. And you just heat up the shrink tube. On all sides, so that the shrink tube is shrunk on every side. And then take your big shrink tube that goes over everything. That was the individual, your negative and your positive. And then you take the bigger one that's gonna go over the full one. And when you pull it down, and it's gonna cover majority of the double wire, all your group of wires. And the single wire is just gonna be to the last shrink tube. You don't want it to cover so much of the single wire because the shrink tube that you're using is bigger and it will never tighten around the single wire because the single wire is so small. Okay, so that is your headlights. Your headlights went from, I believe, there was about 4 wires running down. This is all you have from your headlights now. Now this connector is still no good. I have it on there, but it's still no good because I will be running it to connect with all my backlights. So with the headlights, I did the headlights. The backlights is the same thing. The backlights, I will run the backlights, leave it where all my wires is ran up together. I will leave it like that, and I will connect all 3 of these wires with the front lights, with my light switch. All these will be connected here in the back of the car somewhere. I'm thinking, so my lights, this light switch here, I think I'm gonna put it here on the back right there, so that just in case anything happened, he was to crash, if it flip up and it slide, this area can have a chance. But I know the wing goes here, but this area do have a chance of hitting something in a, you know, a scenario where it could hit something. I don't want it to be that way. So I'm gonna put it here and hide it back there. And when you put your light switch, what you do, you take your, you need your finish knife and you need your hole rimmer, your hole puncher rimmer. And your finish knife, what you're gonna do is you're gonna take that square, you're gonna cut that square. You're gonna mark that square so you can cut that square out. That's where your light switch is gonna go on and off. That's all you need from the outside of your body is that little square cut and your 2 holes open. So what I did just now, I made the mark for the square. I just put a scratch on and made the mark for the square, and I made 2 dots for the hole to be open. So for the hole, I take my hole puncher rimmer and just poke my holes through. Small holes. These is not big holes because these holes, the screws is very, very small. After you make your hole, take your light, push your light through, your light switch, push your light switch through, put the plate on where it goes, plug your screws in. Now if you got after you get your screws in, make sure your light switch moves freely, nice and comfortable, back and forth. So now, the reason why I cut soldering the lights and everything, I stopped doing that to get this on and off switch on because one of these wires, my plug-in wire that's gonna plug into the mag connector, or this wire would drop down to plug into whatever my power source is that's coming from the body. I need this wire to solder in with all my other wires because it's gonna be no connectors. There's gonna be no pull a wire in. It's gonna be none of that. All these wires is gonna be one wire and it's gonna feed into the light switch. And then this wire is gonna drop to go somewhere else. But this wire is actually gonna go to my mag connector. I don't know where to drop this mag connector, so I cannot put this mag connector in because I don't have the chassis. So I'm gonna leave this wire to plug into my mag connector, and when you get the car, when you installing the mag connector, you can put it however you want to put it, drop it down wherever you need to drop it down to install, to connect to the bottom mag connector. So right now I got all my wires. What I will do is, see, I want to run these wires across this back, but I already see that where he clipped his body, the body mounts is rubbing onto the body. So I cannot run any wires across here because I already see that there's friction here from the body to the body mounts. So I'm not gonna do that. What I want to do is run these wires underneath here and try to connect these wires with this wire right here. So I will connect all these wires right there and see if I can get this. I might give it a little bit more pull so I can get all these wires with this front wire, connect, and everything runs together and be as one family. I'm just testing out the length of everything to see how I could put it and how everything will be together. Okay, so that looks good. Let me get my cut. So what I'm doing is I'm just making sure all of these wires feeding from the back, the two back lights. Now the back lights, like I said, from the front lights, they're always soldered and down into one wire, but I'm not using where it solders to one wire after it solders to one wire. I'm cutting it before it solders to that one wire. And I'm taking all the back lights, I'm taking the roof light, and I'm taking the one wire that's everything is gonna plug into the power switch, the light switch. I'm gonna take all those and cut them all evenly to be one size, one length, sorry. Now I got all those one length. This wire here that's coming from the front, feet in the back, this will also be cut because this wire is gonna feed into all those and every wire is gonna be wrapped up all into one piece and everything is gonna feed into the light switch. So let me shred all my wires, or let me tie in all my wires, wrap all my wires, twist all my wires together. So once again, I got all my wires coming from the back forward. I'm gonna put a shrink tube to go over that area, over all those wires together. And then I'm gonna take another side shrink tube and put it on the opposite side of the wires. On this side, I need one big enough that could go over the whole thing. This one is a little bit bigger than the last one, but it still works. And then I will put all my wires together and solder all the wires together. Such an easy process. Okay, I wanted to get you close enough to see what I'm doing when I'm soldering these wires together. So like I said, you take the soldering machine, you just put it on the back of the wires for maybe about 3 seconds. Then you take your solder and you touch the machine. The solder is going to start to melt. Once the solder starts to melt, all you do is put the solder on one side of the wire. And it's going to be a coat. It's going to look like the solder is tubing around the solder. It's going to look like Jello is tubing around the wire. And the solder is going to melt around the wire. And once you start seeing the solder on the other side of the wire, on the outer side of the wire from the solder machine, and it's a nice tube, you see the soldering caked around the wire, it's all good. This is how it should look. This is how it should look. Then you take your shrink tube, you pull it up to cover all of your wiring. You don't want to have, because your wire is bent this way and you pulled your shrink tube down that way. So you got to make sure that there is no wire that's going to be poking out the tip of the shrink tube. So just give a look inside there. Make sure that it's completely covered, and you typically want your shrink tube lined up identically in the same area of both the wires. And you give her a heat, shrink the shrink tube. And like I said, you want to touch all sides of the shrink tube so it'll shrink down completely. Pull your wire on, and you want your wire to go all the way down. You want it to cover most of your shrink tube, the big shrink tube, to cover the bundle of wires, not the single wire. So once you pull it down enough where you can see the first shrink tubes that you just shrunk on the individual wires, once you see that, you want to pull it back where you can't see both the under shrink tube, you just see the outer shrink tube. And you shrink it down. And there she goes. You tie it down there. I'm going to tie it down back here. So that is shrinking your wires down from all the wires that was there before to just this one wire running. This is typically how you solder all your wires down to one wire and have the one wire running to your power source. So that is the process of soldering your wires to go from this to this. And that is a big difference. To me, that is a big difference. It's always a big change in your wires when you take your wires and you solder them down and you make it a little bit more visible for your body underneath there instead of being a bunch of wires under there. Now, don't get me wrong. If you don't know how to do this, if you can't do this, try it. Try it on one of your small light kits. And just put if you just got underglow, just solder your underglow together and put it to one wire, where instead of you having a connector to have two wires connected to one wire, you solder your wires to one wire and run one of the wires. Try that to make it a little bit more example of, okay, now I see what Lou talking about. I can solder my wires together. If you don't know how to do it and you like all your wires inside there, hey, whatever floats your boat, floats your boat. To me, I'm just giving you the knowledge of how to take your wires and take them from a group of wires to one wire. And let's give her a test. I'm doing all this talking about how good it looks. Let's give her a test. I always got to test to make sure it is working as it should work. And bam, there you go. Your headlights, your top lights, your back lights, everything is on. Your underlights, everything is on. So what you do to make sure everything is nice and good and the wires is connected real good, wherever you solder it, you give it a little wiggle. You give it a little wiggle. Make sure you don't have no shorts inside there, and we good to go. So that's how you do your simple solder your wires down. And then I do a light switch inside there extra for you guys, so you guys can see how it is with your light switch, where you can turn it on and off. Now, turn it on and off from your transmitter is a good plus, but just to have a light switch on it by itself is a plus to me. So that's that. I hope this video out there helps somebody out there, and they will use this method to running their lights, whatever power, whatever wires you gotta run, and it's just so many wires, and you wanna bring it down to one wire. Use this method. I hope it helps somebody out there. Definitely. So I'm gonna cut out of here with that one being said. And if you're new to this channel, go down there, hit that subscribe, turn on the notifications so that in the next video that I'm throwing some knowledge, or I'm giving some new light kits, or I'm just out there doing speed runs or bashing or just talking to you guys, you'll be the first one to see them videos, first one to like them videos, first one to share the video, and the first one to comment. Because like I always say, talk to me and I talk back. So until the next run,